Wow, were those was awesome leaders here, huh? Were they awesome tonight? They rocked. I'm so proud of this leadership team because I don't know. You just never know when people walk into your lives what's going to happen, and then some people walk out of your lives, and all you can do is just pray that maybe they got something from you, and that they were meant to be in for just that period of time, albeit short sometimes with people and whatever. But anyway, well, we appreciate this time with y'all, and I'm just going to let you hear from my lovely and beautiful bride. It is Mother's Day, and we got married. It'll be 20 years, May 11th. It's not May 11th yet, is it? Okay. I have this fear. You ever have this fear? I remember one time someone said to me, "Yeah, May 11th." I go, "God, the date sounds so familiar to me." Oh my gosh. I think it was like at a function or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I always, kind of equate Mother's Day with our wedding date, and it'll be 20 years coming up May 11th, and it's been 20 wonderful years. I don't know where those years gone by, but she's awesome, and I'll let you hear from her because she's the reason I'm as messed up as I am. Because I just want to be so good for her. She's one of those, she's a person in my life that I want to be better for, among other things. They say, when you look at your children and your family, people think, "Wow, my kids are everything to me." Well, you know what? My wife is everything to me first, because, it's one of those things like what Andy says, when the oxygen masks come down, to me, you got to save yourself first before you can save your kids. And the foundation of our family is, me and Jenny and with Christ in our lives. We form that triangle, the triangle with the Lord at the top and me and her at the bottom. The closer we get to each other, the closer we get to the Lord. So that's the analogy, the foundation of our relationship. And then, God has blessed us with 5 wonderful kids that kind of within that triangle. Is that cool? So anyway, I'm going to give you to my bride, the mother of my children, and the reason why I am who I am and why I do what I do. Here's my bride, Jenny.
We are Alex and Jenny Abuyuan. We're from Dayton, Ohio. We are direct to Art and Bonnie Leeser and to Andy and Jane Albright, NAA. How blessed were we today? Were we all today? Gosh, we had our entire upline here today. We had Art fly in to speak with everyone. We had Andy and Jane fly their private jet and speak to everybody this morning and this afternoon. Enjoy lunch with them. Oh my gosh, how blessed are we? That was just, the highlight of my weekend was right there at the kickoff. A little bit about us. I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. All right, go Steelers. I'm the youngest of 6 children, and very traditional family. My dad worked, my mom stayed home and raised the children. Alex moved around a little bit more, but kind of settled in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's the oldest of 4 children.
Go Raiders!
And also a very traditional family. His mom stayed home, raised the family. So we both ended up in Dayton, Ohio, met each other there, and I went to UD, which is how I got to Dayton. Thank you again. Go Flyers. And Alex ended up getting stationed at Wright Pat in the Air Force, got out of the Air Force, and he was doing defense contracting. out in that area. But we had some friends in common before we knew each other, and we also had an interest in common, which was musical theater. And that's how we met each other. So the thin thread came into play, and we ended up doing the same show at the same time. And ooh, there was this cute boy. And I was just very excited about that show all of a sudden when I got there, and there was this cute boy that I didn't know. So, anyway, we started dating, and that was about the end of that. Never looked back. And even though, as we were dating, Alex couldn't say the M word, it just kind of came out as and I'd say marriage. No, he couldn't say the word. Absolutely could not get the word out of his mouth. But even though he couldn't say the word, we found that we both had the dream that we would have that traditional family, if he could ever say that word. We would have that traditional family and raise our own children at home. So we found that common dream, even though at that time we didn't know it was a dream. It was just something that we had discussed that we had in common. We got married in 1991, which was almost 20 years ago, coming up on the 11th. And we met in 1988. We spent from 1988 to 1992 setting up our financial future. We were looking ahead and planning how we were going to support ourselves by working our job during the day and doing musical theater at night. And we would go from one show to the next show, to the next show, to the next show. Of course, we didn't make any money doing this, and we were working our jobs during the day, and we weren't making any money doing that either. But we were working really hard at it. We were so successful doing that we were completely broke. And even though we had these grand schemes of, banking one of our incomes and putting that away so that when we did have children, it would be no problem for me to come home and raise the kids, that didn't happen because we were spending money faster than we were making it, and we were flat broke. So the dream that we had was fading really fast, and we found ourselves falling into the same thing that everybody else was doing, which was, okay, all right, well, we'll have kids and we'll do the daycare thing. Everybody else is doing it, so we'll do that too. So the dream was fading really fast for us. For the second time in our lives, the second big time in our lives, the thin thread came into play again. And an old work acquaintance called Alex and asked him if he was open-minded to looking at some income, and he said yes. He didn't care what it was. He didn't care if it was legal. He didn't care if it was illegal. He just, was open-minded. So I wasn't happy about this whole thing that was kind of invading our lives. But thank God he didn't listen to me, and he went ahead and he got involved anyway. And this was where we really got our education in self-employment. Eventually, I went to my first quarterly convention in this other business, and I went begrudgingly, but my eyes were opened to the fact that our dream could still happen. We could get that back again. We could actually be self-employed in our spare time and replace my income so that I could come home and raise children that we didn't have yet. So, and that business was also, it was the basis for where we are today, because that's where we met Andy and Jane Albright. That's where we met Art and Bonnie Leeser. That's where we met Patrick and Susie Connors. That's where we met Mike and Noelle That's where we met Mike Leventovich and Noelle Barrett, who became Mike and Noelle Leventovich, and so many other people that we're associated with today in NAA. But it was really our education, and it was our basis for where we are now. We did start our family in 1995, and I retired from my JOB 1 month before Zoe was born. So some of you have seen the big retirement video, Jane's big retirement video. We have one of those too. I smashed the clock with a sledgehammer and did that whole thing. And they brought the limo, and he carried me out of the building and the whole 9 yards, and it was wonderful. 20 months after that, Athen came along. And a very short 16 and a half months after that, Maddie came along. So we built our business together with 3 very small children, a very big babysitter list, and we did some crazy things. We did some crazy things to get to the meetings and to be where we needed to be and do what we needed to do with those small children. And I don't think any of them are any the worse for wear. What a great kid. Look at him over there. But we did what we had to do to build the life that we wanted for our family. And we didn't let the children dictate what our future was going to be. We did what we needed to do for our future and did what we needed to do for the children. In 1999, Alex was shown the insurance business with our practice company, and we discovered that the insurance business was really where we could build that financial future that we wanted. So we were on that self-employment ladder. We just had to pick up that ladder from the wrong wall and put it over onto the right wall and get going in the right direction, because that was really the vehicle that we had been looking for. In 2000, Alex quit his job, and we were 100% self-employed. So the greatest thing about being 100% self-employed is that you're 100% self-employed, and the worst thing about it is that you're 100% self-employed, and we found that out more than once. We had 2 more children in 2001 and 2003, Nicholas and Isabel. And right in between there, 2002 is when NAA started. And we found our home, and this is the real deal. We've really found our home in this business. The great leadership that we have around us that brought us into the business, that we've surrounded ourselves with in this room, and just the great people that we've met, people that we want our children to learn from and to grow up with. And we feel so fortunate to be where we are with all of you. And with that, I want to bring up Alex, and he can fill in the holes and finish the story. But this is my hero. He's always been the man that he needed to be. And I appreciate you so much. I love you.
You ever try carrying an 8-month pregnant woman out the threshold?
I was way more petite then.
She was. Wow. Golly, what memories. Yeah, I'm a music theater geek, but thank God for musical theater, because it brought me my wife. I also dated a lot of other girls because of it too, but we'll talk about that. Oh man, what can I tell you, man? I tell you, I was, I was thinking, well, what am I going to talk about, or how am I going to tell you my story? And I was thinking about all kinds of ways, and it just kind of hit me over there. I'm kind of going off script now, and something that just kind of hit me really all of a sudden was, it's funny how when you listen and do what God wants you to do, things just kind of happen. It may not be the easiest way for things to happen, but things happen. You look back, it's like, wow, that's why I did that, you know. And then when you like are rebellious and you don't do what he wants you to do, then all kinds of junk happens. And then you learn to come back to him, you know. He kind of reminds you that, you remember, I'm still here. So it's not like he leaves you, you know. Even in your times when are tough, you think, where'd God go? He didn't go anywhere, bro. He's always been there. It's you who kind of faded off the path. You know, kind of like when you look at the Israelites, you know, trying to find the land of milk and honey. Or they kind of went in circles for, 40 years? You know, I mean, that's kind of how I was, you know. And when I look at my past, it's interesting, the walk of faith. The walk of faith is never an easy one. That's why it's called faith. You know, it's like one of those things, you know. It's a walk. It's a journey. Sometimes it's a run. Sometimes you're sitting on your butt and it's like, yeah, I have faith. But do you really? You know, sitting on your butt. I don't think God ever wanted us to just sit on our butts. You know, I think he wanted us to work. I think he put us on this world to work. You know, some people think that we're human beings, you know, having a spiritual experience now and again. And I've learned in my 50 years on this earth that, you know what, we are spiritual beings having a temporary human experience because we're going to become a spiritual being again. Totally. You know, we have this physical body. And, you know what, people say, you know, I don't mean to offend. Well, you know what, you have your beliefs and you have your faith. And when you get to be as big as me, not like girth, but when you're able to have leaders like this, then you could have the mic and say what you believe. And I hope you do. I don't care what walk of life you come from or what race, creed, or color. You know, actually, I don't know if you knew this, but I was born in Morocco. You know, Africa. It's in Africa, you know. And so I call myself African American because I was born in Morocco, Africa. Some people go, what? I'm probably more African American than some people. You always got to have a gimmick. That was one of mine. Anyway, you know, it's crazy. When I look back and think about how, you know, I'm first generation Filipino. My parents are Filipino. My dad, when I think about how did I get to this awesome country, being first generation, I think about it. My dad, he tried to get into the Philippine Military Academy. And because he didn't have a little payola for the guys that were doing his medical thing, because, you know, back in the Philippines, it's like if you had money, you could pay somebody, they could fake your medical exam and you can get in. Well, my dad came from a poor background. And what's crazy is that he got turned down because his blood pressure was high. And so he well, what's he going to do? You know, he's kind of the 17-year-old. He's about as skinny as my son over here. And you know what he did? He joined the United States Navy. And back then, they were accepting, you know, Filipinos, non-citizens, to be stewards aboard ships. And that was his way here to land of opportunity, was to join the U.S. Navy. And I think, thank God. Thank God. Because I could have been, well, I probably wouldn't have been, you know, I mean, because when he got into the Navy, guess what happened? My grandfather on my mother's side, he joined the U.S. Navy as an electrician, civilian electrician in the Philippines. And they shipped him over here. And that's how he got to this country. Brought his 13 children over, of which my mom was a member of that massive family. And then she and her sister joined the U.S. Navy themselves. So that's how my parents got together in the Navy. Thank God. I mean, it's kind of the U.S. Navy's been kind of a running theme here. Thank God for the U.S. Navy. Because that's where my parents met. And then they had me. I was a joy in their life, you know. Actually, they thought I was going to be a criminal. I was rambunctious. I was crazy. I mean, my uncle, who was a priest, he told my mom, she goes, that son of yours is going to be in jail, because I was like running all over the place. I mean, I swear I was like ADD before it was even diagnosed. You know, I mean, I was running. I mean, come on. You're thinking, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. Welcome to Springford. How you doing? I mean, it's really strange. And I think about, you know, why am I telling you this? Well, look, you could have like a crazy personality. You grew up all messed up like I was, but you know, trusting God to guide you is where I was always at for me. You know, I remember very distinctive things in my youth. When I was 6 years old, this is when my dad was stationed in Alameda, California, and I was 6 years old. My parents always thought it was a good idea for their children to learn how to swim. So we went down to the local YMCA, and my mom would, you know, a 6-year-old kid, my mom would drop me off there. This is back in the day when, you know, you could maybe trust people. You know, it was back 1966. And so she dropped me off in downtown Oakland, California, dropped me off at the YMCA so I could learn to swim. And then she'd come by and pick me up, and then we'd go home. And one day she dropped me off, and, you know, after swimming lessons, I was out on the stoop there going into the YMCA, and no mom. You know, I was just sitting there going, this is like downtown Oakland, California. I'm like looking around, 6 years old. It's like, what's up? Where's my mom? You know, and I wasn't panicked. You know, I just kind of like, okay, well, maybe she wanted me to walk home. At the time, we were living with my grandmother in the Oakland, Berkeley, right on the border of Oakland and Berkeley. So I said, well, I'll just start walking. I'll walk kind of over this way. I mean, honestly, I took off. I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I just took off. I was just like this 6-year-old with a wet towel, and I just started walking. It's crazy. And so all of a sudden, now this is like after my grandfather passed away. And who was, you know, I always looked up to him. He was someone I always loved to impress. And I remember walking down the street, city street, and I kind of saw this guy, this man with a coat and a hat, just kind of walk this way. And I don't know why I followed him. I have no idea why I followed him. I just followed him. I just followed him. I just started walking. And he made a right turn, so I just kind of followed him here. And then he went this way, and I just followed him. I don't know why. I mean, to this day, I have no idea. And I just kept walking. All of a sudden, he kind of disappeared. I didn't know where he went, but I just kept walking and walking. And all of a sudden, I show up at my grandmother's house, like, oh, here it is. A kind of familiar neighborhood now. Now I know where I'm at. So I go in. So I walk in the door, just plop down, like nothing happened. And the house was empty except for my aunt. And she looked at me like, oh my God, where have you been? I go, what's up? You know, 6-year-old. I mean, what's going on? I'm hungry. You know, can you make me something to eat? And she goes, your mama has been looking for you. You know, Filipino accent. And I go, why? She didn't pick me up. I thought I was supposed to walk home. She said, the police are looking for you. I go, uh-oh. I know I stole that candy in the store. I'm going, oh my God, they found out. They're all over the place looking for you. They've been going down the streets. I didn't think it was a big deal. So, you know, they come home and they were like all freaking out. And I was like, I just followed this guy. You know how many miles that was? That was a 5-mile walk. And I retraced that steps years later. Oh my gosh. It was like, there was like turns. I don't know how I would have crossed the freeway, but now, I mean, it was crazy. God led me. He led me. He led me. And I look at my life, and all the times that I've just followed in faith, He always led me to where I was supposed to go. And it's been a theme in my life, this just running theme in my life. that anytime I followed him, he never led me astray. And when I think about faith and how we manifest our faith in what we do in terms of work, because faith is manifested by work. You got to activate faith by work. I think about just following this man. Maybe just following this man. He made it easy for me. I don't know why. I have no idea why. And sometimes you'll be presented with something in your life that you have no idea why it was just the right thing to do. No matter how you try to intellectualize any decision you make, when it comes right down to it, you either have faith or you don't. And how do you know you have it? I don't know exactly, other than doing the work to go in a direction that you think God is leading you. And you know what? It's not a lot of fun. It's not supposed to be. Our time here on earth is not meant to be fun. It's meant to be work. The Lord sent us here to do something. It's called a mission. If you believe the way I believe, it's called a mission. What's your mission? What were you meant to do? What has God called you to be right here, right now, to do? I have no idea. All I know is, in order for me to guide myself, I need to follow in faith. I need to follow that man. What I found out is that man is Jesus Christ in my life anyway, and that's who I follow. And every time I did it, and when I think about what he did for me, man, it just blows me away. Spiritual beings going through human experience. So he's taught me a lot of things. I mean, one thing about me, you got to know that, there's certain things in my life that just are very vivid things in my mind. And I think the Lord kind of puts stuff on you, and it could be the thing that holds you back, or it could be the thing that propels you forward. It's up to you what you decide to do with it. I remember my dad was stationed in Georgia in the Navy. And this is when I was in kindergarten. And just vivid memories. I was in a playground in kindergarten, and these kids would just make fun of me because they found out I was born in Africa. So they were like relentless, teasing me that I was like a jungle boy. Hey, jungle boy, doing all this stuff, and it was like, and there was like, these kids were just teasing me. And it was just it's like I can hear those kids laughing at me like it was yesterday. Isn't that weird? I mean, things that should not be a scar are scars on me. But I think what the Lord does is he says, I'm going to put you through stuff. I'm going to heal you. But part of my prayer is, thank you for the healing, but Lord, leave the scars. Because the scars will remind me of what you did for me. Because if we had no scars, you think, hey, it's all gone. I pray that you have scars. Because scars will give you appreciation. Okay? Like I look at this scar on my thumb. Okay, see this scar? And Jenny's laughing. You ever have one of those moments when you think you could do anything? All you have to do is read instructions on. And so we were broke, right? And we had like our first home, and they had, and so we discovered that it had hardwood floors underneath the carpet. So I pulled all the carpet, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. But it had, kind of discoloration or whatever. So, hey man, I'm pretty good with tools, I think. And so we had this wild and crazy idea that we were going to sand the floors. Get a sander, one of those sanders, those round things that kind of get away from you. And, so here we are. This is the 4th of July week. Okay, and we got have you ever done that? Any of you ever sanded your floors? Talk about a broke thing to do. I'm serious, man. I mean, we did it all. We took off those baseboards out and to this day I've got this scar because I was yanking on this. I was getting tired and frustrated, and my back went out, and then I cranked this thing, and it totally tore up my thumb, and it's like this big scar right here. It was pretty hilarious, I was bleeding. It wasn't funny at the time, And so this doctor, he puts this stitch in here, and it was like interesting because, wow, it was like 6 stitches. And then when I look at it now, it's like 12 little scars around this one big scar. It's called a mattress stitch. And I'm like, wow, that kind of looks like the Last Supper, like a scar with... I don't know, I'm reaching now, right? I'm really walking in faith, I'm trying to attach some spiritual meaning to this. But it just reminds me of that time when we were together thinking, and you know what it taught us? We'll never, ever sand our floors again. But, I don't know why I said that, but it's something about scars, the scars that we have. And, this business will give you scars. Things that weren't fun. Things that weren't fun. Like when those kids were laughing at me. So what did that do for me? It made me figure out that, I could let those kids hold me down, that I was different, that I was born in a different country, that I was a person of color, okay, kind of tan, that I was Filipino. You don't know how many times, you Chinese, you Oriental. I'm thinking, Oriental? That only applies to rugs and food, I'm Filipino. Well, you look Japanese. I mean, it's like crazy. Again, I could hear those kids laughing at me. And just that thing just drove me to realize, I could let that hold me back. That could be something that I could always be bitter about and say, well, I can't make it because I'm just Japanese looking, Chinese looking, Asian looking Oriental, But that just drove me. That drove me to prove those kids wrong. That just drove me all my life. I wanted to prove them wrong, that I could be better than them. And it just created this intensity about what crazy things I could do to be better than them. I started really, kind of using them as my motivation to be better. I think about, I started playing baseball, and, it's one of those things. Baseball is an interesting game, and you guys have played it. And what I loved about baseball is that every time, this is fast pitch, hard ball, that kind of thing. This is in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. My dad was stationed out there, and just vivid memories of being frightened going up to the batter's box. You ever, Little League, do you guys remember being scared of that ball? Getting scared. And so, you know what? I was going, doggone it, man. I had that scared feeling every time I went up. And I would just ring that bat. Because this is back when there were wood bats. Okay? Wood bats. Played with wooden bats. And so I'd go up there and I was just fearful. But there was something that said, you know what? These kids are laughing at me. They don't think this Oriental guy can play baseball. And so it just drove me. And every time I went up there, I just kept hearing those kids laughing at me. And I just swing the bat as hard as I could. I don't care if I missed it. I was going to swing at every pitch. And I was going to be a good ball player. I was going to do everything I was supposed to do because I was driven. And it was a weird thing that I was fearful of going to the batter's box, but I had the objective wanting to knock that snot out of the ball to prove those other kids wrong that were laughing at me. And so I didn't know if I was good or bad. All I knew is that I had the highest batting average. I batted 500. I didn't even know what that meant. I guess it was pretty good until I realized, man, if I did that when I was older, I could make several $1 million. But at the time, it was I was better than everyone else, and it was I was scared, I was fearful. But it kind of, you can kind of see this person kind of developing out of that. And I realized, wow, this is something I like. And so I became this, I don't know if you call them high need achievers. I needed to achieve all the time. I needed to prove those kids that I was better. I used it as my way to be better. Okay, when I got into junior high, I was accepted into this mentally gifted minor program for people with IQs greater than 115. I had no idea if that was good or bad. All I knew is that people that were in this program got to go on a lot of field trips, in California. It was this cool thing. Man, I never thought of myself as being this brainiac. I got straight A's. I was always a curve buster. People hated when I was in their class. But I just always wanted to study. I always wanted to be the best. I studied all the time because I kept hearing those kids laughing at me. I had something to prove. It drove me. I was voted most likely to succeed in an educational way. Is that crazy? It was just because of education. So I got into high school. In high school, again, I was driven. Man, And kind of what happened out of this being driven is this fierce temper. I had this bad temper. And I always used that emotion to drive me, good and bad. I would get down on myself. I would just blow up at things. And it was really kind of a weakness of mine, but I also used it as my advantage because I would just bear down. I was so angry at myself for not being as good as I could be. It was just this crazy thing. And so I ended up getting straight A's there, well, except for one B. You won't believe it. I was a basketball player. I'm a varsity basketball player, played varsity tennis. And I got a B in physical education. You know what class? Basketball. I wanted to kill everybody in the class. I was this maniac basketball player. I didn't care if I ran the score up 30 points on the other team. And I had the ball all the time, because I could play. And these are just like pedestrian students playing basketball. They just wanted to have fun. I wanted to kill them. And when I wouldn't put the ball in the hoop, I was so mad I would just cuss. I would say a bunch of swear words. And I just lost my temper all the time because I just couldn't kill them as much as I wanted to. And that's where I got my B. I got a B in physical education, which put me at number 2 in the school when I graduated. Number 2. I was not valedictorian. Can you believe it? That made me mad. This chick was a valedictorian. This girl, I got beat by a girl. Oh my God. Now understand, this sick brain here was just couldn't handle being beat by a girl, an Oriental one at that. What's funny is that when she got out of high school, she started her own business. I thought she was going to, go to education, higher education. She started her own business, became successful. I went and, I got into the Air Force Academy. And when I talk about my walk with the Lord, it's always that thing. I felt like my dad wanted me to go to the Air Force Academy because he wanted me to get an education because he had no money. As an enlisted man in the Navy, had no money for us. There was for college. What I realized, which is kind of crazy, it's you walk in faith, and I knew that, I just felt that, that God wanted me to go there for some reason. It was just there. It was only there. It wasn't like West Point or Annapolis. It was the Air Force Academy. And what's crazy is that there are 15,000 people that compete for appointments at the Air Force Academy for about 1,600 appointments in our freshman class. I had no idea. I just applied. And yeah, I did great in school, but I didn't know if I was going to get in. Once I got in, I realized that there were 15,000 people competing. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh. Maybe I was lucky, I don't know. But I didn't think about it because had I not got in, that was the only place I applied. I didn't apply to any other colleges. That's the only place I applied. Is that crazy? And it's just thank God. Thank God. I think about other times, when I was little, I just had this walk. I don't know what it is, man. I think the Lord has just been so good to me. And I just, when I look at when I was a kid, 6 years old again, 6 or 7, it was crazy because I would walk to daily mass when I was little. And I was the only one. I'd leave home early. I'd walk to school. And it was just me at daily mass in the morning before school. I went to a Catholic school. And I would just sit there, I remember this, in the 4th pew on the right-hand side, and I would just go there every day. And I just had this love and thirst to be with him for some reason. I don't know why. It was just this hunger that I always had. And it was just something that kept driving me to find ways to follow him. And I just feel so blessed by that grace to have this thirst. Anyway, so kind of fast forward to, I was in the Air Force and I didn't feel like the Air Force was for me. I felt it limiting. And then I moved on to defense contracting. I thought, my future was going to be as a consultant in the Air Force. Here I was thinking, this is all me. This is, I thought I was like this hot stuff. I thought Air Force Academy grad, I can get a great job. I can, and also I was thinking about me. I wasn't thinking about what God wanted me to do. And I just did not find my success out there. And I thought, man, why am I so frustrated all the time? It's just frustration. I found when I was frustrated, I was not like following what God wanted me to do, or I was not doing what God wanted me to do. I was just frustrated. It's like, why does he want me to do this, but I'm not being successful? And I always thought that every time I had that thought, it was more about me. It was more about what I thought I wanted, not what I thought the Lord wanted out of me. So Art Leeser gives me a call. I was a broke, busted, and disgusted executive recruiter, making a lot of money, but time broke. I never saw my kids. I would see my kids grow up by swapping pictures on a desk. They were asleep when I went to work and asleep when I got back home. It was like a terrible life. And so Art Leeser calls me and actually I was kneeling in prayer and asking, Lord, can you please help me? Is there any way that you can help me get out of this crap, where I never saw my family? And we had 3 children at the time. And 2 weeks later, here's the content of my prayer. My prayer was, Lord, I'm going to listen to you this time because I'm this insolent child. I'm going to look at the next thing you throw at me. And it's like what Ken was saying. Thank God he didn't have a Mary Kay gal knocking that door, because we'd be talking about Mary Kay, and I'd be driving a pink Cadillac, and I'd have a nicer complexion. But you know what? He had Art Leeser give me a call, and thank God Art put my name on a list to call, because that was the day that my life totally changed. Because he put something in my path, because I was thinking, Lord, whatever you put my way, I'm going to go for it. Because I will believe that it's from you. And Art calls me and says, hey, you're looking to make some extra money? I said, amen, brother. I don't care what it is. Let's do it. And we did it. And he said, do you know anyone else? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And so that's when I talked to Noel Leventovich and Patrick Connors. Again, the Lord puts people in your life for all kinds of reasons. He puts them in your life. And you don't know why. All I knew was that they were people that I cared about, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if they're gonna want to make some money with me. I mean, they followed me kind of everywhere, and I felt so responsible that they weren't making money at the recruiting place I was at, and so part of it was out of guilt, like, golly, I got to get them making some money, and so we got into this thing together. And I remember, we prayed, and we were just like praying this thing would work. And it just started to work. And it started to work. We started making money. Now, those guys quit after about 3 weeks of doing it. I stayed on for like 3 months. But, and it's just been kind of a wild ride ever since. And I think about the challenges that we have had in this business because of my own stupidity. When I think about things I was frustrated about, why I wasn't growing as fast as I wanted, or why we weren't making, our lead bill payments because we were doing stupid stuff on the investment side. I mean, look, there's right ways to make money in this thing, and there's wrong ways. Okay, when you're not running your business properly, like any business, you can do stupid things, trying to grow too fast, trying to put investment dollars that you didn't have in expanding, and you weren't getting the return from it because we did stupid things. Primarily, it was me not counseling with my upline, Andy Albright, and Art Leeser. I wasn't asking, I was an insolent child. I wasn't looking for mentorship. Wise man has many counselors. I was not taking advantage of that proverb. and I suffer the consequences of it. Again, oh boy, I remember times where I'd be sitting on my car getting no-showed 5 times in a row, asking, Lord, man, why am I doing this business? And I would just be screaming. There's another intense moment in my life. Lord, why? Why? You ever have that? You are like in despair, and you're thinking, why is it so hard? Why am I going through this? Why is it so tough? Is this the right thing to do? It's so tough, it causes you to wonder, why am I doing this? Lord, give me strength. Give me some discernment here. Should I continue on, or what am I doing? And it's that moment when you finally submit and humble yourself. I'm tired of doing it on my own. You take the reins. You take the steering wheel. You take the steering wheel. I'll press on the gas as hard as I can, but you get to take it now. And what's crazy is that when I let him steer my car and I did the work, everything started turning around. And it wasn't because I was blessed. I was definitely blessed, but it wasn't because I was favored in any way. I just think we do what we're supposed to do, and God continues to make our path. And the path is never easy. Even now, all the successes that we've had, the path is always going to be the path. The path is going to be the hard path that you have to walk, but we have the faith to continue on. And I did, and the business started to explode. And Mike and Patrick and their group started to explode, and things started happening. And it just grew, and it grew. And so when I look back on that time when things were flat and things were frustrating, every time that happened was when I was thinking about me and where I was going. And every time it grew was when I was thinking about other people and how I could help other people grow. How can I help others grow and build and get the best out of this business instead of looking at how this business is going to help me? Whenever I gave myself away without any expectation of return, the business grew. Every time I strategically invested my time in something or someone, thinking I'd get something back, the business didn't grow. I got more frustrated, so I started figuring out this thing. Whenever I gave myself away, the business grew. So whenever you get frustrated about stuff, think about who you're thinking about. Are you thinking about yourself? Having your own little pity party? Or are you thinking about other people? When you think about yourself, I'll guarantee you'll be frustrated. When you think about other people, I guarantee you'll be happy. Because you're helping someone else other than yourself. So, anyway, I think about what God wants me to be. I think about all the great things He's given me in this business. But what He's given me more than anything else? He's given me my faith. See, because, He died for me. And He's given me salvation. He's given me my faith. He's given me everything that I am. He's given me every gift I could ever imagine. All things, the good and the bad, He's given me. Because my mission is not accomplished yet. And I keep walking, and I keep walking. See, because on your tombstone, you're going to have your birth year, and then you're going to have a dash, and then you're going to have the year that you went home. And your life is that dash. And eternity is eternity. What are you going to do with that dash? Here's what I want to do with that dash. I want it to be something that my children... I want it to be an influence on my children. I want it to be the number one influencer. I wanted my children to look to me as someone who was better because of my walk. And so what I did was I wrote this letter. I was writing this, it's like, it's based on Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Okay. And he writes in chapter 2, what would you like your eulogy to be? What would you like at the end of your life people to say about you? In other words, it's kind of a way to understand that, at the end of your life, you either impact people or you don't. But what would you like? You just begin with the end in mind. And I thought, well, I don't want to go all the way, whenever that would happen. So I kind of brought it a little bit closer to home. What would I want my firstborn daughter, Zoe, to say? What letter would I want her to write on her wedding day? Because who knows when that's going to happen. It's going to be a lot sooner, I hope, than when the Lord takes me home, but you never know. And what it allowed me to do is, in a more immediate way, understand what I aspire to be. And for those of you guys out there that have daughters, I would recommend you write a letter like this, or write a letter that you think your daughter would write to you on her wedding day. And I want to share it with you because I think it'll help you understand what drives me. And I think if you do this exercise, men that have daughters, I think you'll figure out something about yourself too, what you want to be. So this is what I wrote. And I would want her to write this, and so I'm working to be this kind of dad. So, letter from Zoe. Dearest Dad, well, it's finally here, the day you give me away in marriage. I wanted you to read this before we walked down the aisle together because I could never tell you this in person without crying and ruining my makeup. And you know how much you paid the makeup artist to do my face. I want you to know how much I love you, not only because you're my dad, but for the person I have become. You showed me how much you loved me through your example and the role model you became for me. Because you made sacrifices before I was even born to bring Mom home from work to be with me full time, I learned that I'm important to you and I am a priority in your life. Because you were free to go to all my basketball games, tennis matches, and piano recitals when my friends' dads were too busy at work to attend, I felt confident that no matter how well I performed, you would always be there screaming for me and supporting me. And I'll always treasure that ice cream cone we had after the games to tell me how great I was. Because of your strength and faith in God and His Son Jesus and how you live the gospel every day, I learned that I am also a child of God made in His own image, that I have value because of it, value enough for Jesus to give His life for me. Because I saw you give yourself away to others, driving miles for people, some of whom never really appreciated all you did for them, I learned that there is value in others who deserve the same opportunity I had in having full-time parents. I also learned that when you serve God's people unselfishly, you're not only blessed here on earth, but you also store treasures in heaven. Because I saw you tithe and offer the first fruits of your labor, I learned that my source is always God, not a job or even this business. And that by giving away more, you receive more in abundance. You taught me you can't outgive God. Because you gave me a godfather and godmother and Uncle Roger and Aunt Maureen, strong in their faith and unwavering in their convictions, I learned to always seek the truth through the Holy Spirit's guidance. Because by knowing the truth, it will set me free. Because I saw you say, I'm sorry to people with big egos who are in the wrong. I learned humility of spirit and the ability to forgive 70 times 7 times. Because I only heard encouraging and uplifting positive words come out of your mouth, I learned how powerful the spoken word is and how to be a blessing to everyone I meet. Because of the way you loved Mom by your words and your actions, and the way you treated me as a lady, worthy of the highest respect, I learned to respect myself and expect that from every gentleman I've met. Because you taught me that a man should have vision, honor, integrity, character, and faith in God through Jesus, not by words, but by your actions. Today, I will marry the man of my dreams because he is just like you. Remember, you'll always be my daddy and I'll always be your little girl. I love you, Daddy. Zoe. So, anyway, that's the man I would hope to be. And I strive to be every day. And that's why you're here, to help me in this journey to become this guy. So that's your job, your mission, if you choose to accept it. But, I just thank the Lord because He's the King of my life. And I thank Him for putting you out there because I'm here to help you become what God wanted you to become. And that's my job. And I hope you put the work behind it because we can do some great things together as a team. Great things. Great things. Greater things you will do than I have done. We can do some great things together as a team. Unified as a team. Putting everything that you've ever wanted in your life in faith and works in what we got here and the leadership you have right here. Because when you grow up to be leaders, you will bring people and draft people behind you. Because your life will mean something to someone else. Wouldn't that be cool? When you can say the same thing that I can say about Andy Albright. That my son had a chance to meet the man that helped me become this guy right here. I would want him and all my kids to be around those kind of people. And that's why I'm proud of all these guys, because I'm proud Athens can look up to all these leaders right here. All right? And those are your leaders. And you can be on these tables because you're going to have people out there too. If you can be what God wanted you to be and put your faith activated by the works that you do, what more can you do? How much more can you do to become the man, the woman that God wanted you to be? That's my challenge to you because I know you could do it. And it's my daily walk. I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm forgiven. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.